3050, which has been read. Mr. Chief Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, House Concurrent Resolution 3050 was introduced by Representatives Hansen, P. Anderson, Boucher, Gugelsberg, Mock, Mooney, and M. Nelson, and Overson, and Senators Axness and Oban. House Concurrent Resolution 3050 is a concurrent resolution to create and enact a new section to Chapter to Article 12 of the Constitution of North Dakota relating to precluding corporations from claiming the rights of a natural person and exerting influence on elections or legislation. Mr. Speaker, your Judiciary Committee recommends do not pass on House Concurrent Resolution 3050 by a vote of 13 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 absent not voting. Mr. Speaker.
Representative M. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, without belaboring this point, let me just say that the House Concurrent Resolution 3050 was rather lacking in definition, direction, and the committee felt that there were better methods to attempt to remedy what it addresses. And I guess I'll just let the vote of the committee speak for itself. Judiciary recommends do not pass, 13-0, and we hope this floor will do the same.
Is there further discussion? Representative Overson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the bill carrier yield to a question, please?
Representative M. Johnson, will you yield to a question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I will.
Representative Overson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Johnson, while I certainly understand we don't want to waste time, I think it's a little unfair to not even get an explanation of what the bill sponsor was intending to do. So maybe you can give us a brief explanation of the intention and why the committee thought that this was not clear on that, please. Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative Overson. I'm not sure how to answer the question. I'm not sure all that this intended because we were unsure what institution granted the privilege to exist, all encompassed. We were, again, unsure what institution meant. We were unsure what aggregate resources meant. Well, let me just provide an example that I did in committee. A single member limited liability company owns a transportation company, not subject to sales tax currently. Assume there's a bill before Finance and Tax that says now these companies, transportation will be subject to sales and use. I, as the single member, can't go testify in Finance and Tax because this says I can't influence legislation. So, you know, and then there are other entities that are even more informal, recognized by the state, joint ventures, compacts, informal partnerships, whatever. And this would very much restrict the ability for owners to testify. So that was probably an unintended consequence, but a consequence nevertheless.
Representative Hawken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, that certainly is why the vote was what it was. The other discussion in the committee had to do with things that we've talked about in this body before and basically leads to Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court. And the concern, I believe, was that there isn't any reporting. There isn't anything that says how much. And that was the concern. Probably should have stopped after the word election because that's the intent, is we don't want our elections to be purchased by out-of-state or in-state groups. We want it to be up front. And I believe that was where the bill intended to go, but as the bill's carrier said, we couldn't determine that that's what it would actually do.
Is there further discussion? The House has before it for final consideration House Concurrent Resolution 3050. The clerk will open the key and you may record your vote. Has every member voted? Do any members wish to change their vote? The key will be closed and the clerk will take the record. The final vote shows 18 yeas, 70 nays, 6 absent, not voting. House Concurrent Resolution 3050 is declared failed.